This is the Todd Atkins Show, okay? We're talking about Todd Atkins. I've known him for a very long time. Fantastic person, handsome person, and a really tough guy, okay? You're talking about a tough guy. He talks about combat sports. You're looking at Colby Covington, fantastic people in combat sports, and Todd Atkins is a highly respected person. He talks about it all the time. He's got a great show. You're watching the greatest show, okay? The Todd Atkins Show, and you're watching it. I would not want to pick a fight with Todd. I would not want to pick a fight with Todd, so don't miss it. He's got the greatest people and the greatest show. Not like the fake news, okay? He's a great show, highly respected, and you don't want to miss it, believe me.
All right, so it's Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Michael Barbosa. This is my first interview on Millions. I've done millions of interviews, but this is my first interview on Millions. And Michael, thanks for taking time out here. Glad to interview you. And Michael's a fellow Navy guy like me, so this is going to be pretty cool to talk to him. And I just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to everybody who might end up watching this.
Well, thank you, Todd, for the introduction. My name is Michael Barbosa. I was in the Navy for some time and stationed in Japan for a plethora of years. So it's fair to say, I've done my fair share of duty. So that's who I am. I've done a lot. I've been around the world quite a few times.
Now, I always ask people kind of start out, I found the sport UFC 2. My friend in high school kind of said, that he had rented it at Blockbuster Video, like the VHS. And he was saying, oh, you should go. He would tell like our circle of friends, I just sent it back. So one of y'all should go get it and watch it. So I want to ask you, when did you first find the sport?
To be honest, I started watching it probably around UFC 1 when,
Oh,
it
yeah.
was Steven Severin. And I still have the, original VHS. And I remember, when it first came out, it was the iron silver dude holding up the UFC sign.
Right.
And that was before it was changed to just the emblem.
But when did you really get into it, you think? Because you're about to have a fight soon. And so I want to kind of ask you, when did you first start to like really get into martial arts in general?
So I started doing martial arts as a kid, probably around third, fourth grade. I was getting bullied a lot, so my parents decided to put me and my little brother into karate. And that was necessarily for self defense and discipline and, to create routine for ourselves. I want to say around 2005, when I entered high school, I got interested in wrestling. My uncles previously before me actually wrestled at the same high school with a lot of the same coaches. So I had a conversation a couple times with my uncle and my dad, and I got persuaded into do. Well, I didn't get persuaded. I necessarily persuaded myself into do wrestling, and from about then, 2005 until now, I've always been interested in mixed martial arts. So I did wrestling in high school all the way up into my senior year. And then from wrestling, I was doing boxing on my off time with my dad and my little brother. And I boxed at Dream, Believe, Become Boxing in Waukegan. And I just got more and more influenced and entertained in the sport and just continue to follow it. One of my favorite fighters was actually Tito Ortiz. So
Yeah.
I watched a lot of his fights. And after I saw GSP beat his butt, I got more interested in it. And I saw that there was more than just ground and pound and, boxing and wrestling. I saw that there was more to it. There was more techniques and more forms. So I think that's necessarily when it started piquing my interest most.
Yeah, I always tell people Frank Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz was kind of like the first. It's a match I always refer to for people like, kind of cemented Frank as, maybe like the first great fighter we had ever seen. And it also raised Tito's level because he really went on a run after that. You know, it was kind of the first really big fight, and I remember I was in Hawaii. A lot of the people from the MMA circles back then were there was only like one sports bar that showed the UFC at that time because it was during kind of the dark years, and everybody who was in training, fighting, and Super Brawl, which was the show in Hawaii, there were all those guys were there. And I remember, you know, after Frank won, you could kind of see like they were like, you know, like damn, you know, if we want to get there, we got to get to that guy's level, you know.
Yeah, I definitely raised the bar in UFC, I would say.
Yeah.
It was definitely some showtime right there, you know. It piqued a lot of people's interest around that time, and I feel like that's when those big companies like Affliction and Tap Out came out, and you know, you really saw a lot of people support it.
Yeah, I got to meet the guys from Tap Out in Hawaii. They would come to the Super Brawl events and stuff. Really cool guys. You know, Charles Lewis was awesome guy. You know, he always tried to make it feel like you were the most have all these people around, but if he's talking to you, he was focused on you. You know, he was
Yeah,
special that way. Yeah. So, when you said you grew up wrestling, was that in the Illinois area? Because I know you're fighting in Chicago. Are you from Illinois?
yeah. So I grew up in originally Glenview, and around fifth grade, I moved from Glenview to Roundout, which is a small little village of Green Oaks and Lake Bluff, and it's part of Lake County and a smaller town of the Libertyville Township. So I went to Libertyville High School and wrestled under Dale Laggert.
Hmm. So you were kind of that might have influenced you join the Navy because you. How close were you to Great Lakes?
Uh, spitting distance. I could
Hmm.
spit and I'd be at my end of my foot. By the time it hit the ground.
So that's what influenced you think when you joined the military?
No, I actually had three uncles that were in the service prior to me. Two of them were Marines, and one of them was in the Army. And growing up, I had a little bit of an attitude, and they thought it would be a good attitude adjustment for me to either work or to join the military. And when I was working, I was just getting in more trouble. And I had a conversation with a couple of my uncles, probably three or four of them, and they sat down and talked to me, and they asked me what I wanted to do in life, and I didn't know what to answer them,
Yeah,
and
me too.
I I, I literally had no idea what I was in for, and they told me I could pretty much do whatever I wanted to in life, and to pursue whatever I chose to. And I told them, I really want to do culinary arts. I wanted to do art. I had a partial scholarship to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, and a scholarship to Montessori Boston Art Institute. And realistically, I couldn't afford it. I had three other siblings, and it was my mom and us. My dad was deported around 2008, 2009, and
Deported to
my
where?
mom back to
Mexico?
Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had his citizenship and he was working on a full time citizenship. He had his green card. And unfortunately, he just had a hard time accumulating and assimilating to the American lifestyle. And they ended up deporting him um, back around 2008, 2009, my senior year of high school. So I had a hard time trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And a lot of it was because of my dad not being in the picture, and he was a lot of my motivation and inspiration in wrestling, martial arts, and boxing. So around that time, that's necessarily what kind of pushed me to join the military, just because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and realistically, I knew I couldn't afford college for myself and try to help my family. Me and my sister were in the same grade. She's considered my Irish twin. So she pretty much was smarter than me, not going to lie. She's very educated. And I knew that it was either her or I went to college, and either one of us were to go to like the military or to work or so forth. And since she was the firstborn in my family, she was considered the first generation for college. So she ended up going and using some grants and going to college at Western Illinois. And I decided the best choice of my life was to join the Navy at the time. And initially, I went in. Um, I was supposed to go work on the aviation side and work on the explosive and electronics of it and the catapults. And they told me it would be a year to 2 years before I can actually get into boot camp. And I was part of the SPAC program. And I decided, or the APAC, my apologize. I was part of the APAC program, and I decided, you know what? Why am I waiting when I'm ready now? And I decided that day that I would no longer care what job I was in the military, and I would just get deployed. So I dropped my job, which is known as a rating, and I decided to go undesignated. So I got sent to boot camp in 2010. 8 weeks later, I got sent to Common Core, and from Common Core, I got sent to Japan shortly after.
Yeah, going in undesignated, maybe sometime. I mean, I didn't do it, but you can kind of maybe have opportunities to see something you might like rather than going in. I didn't know what I was even doing when I went in the military. We weren't at war at the time. I went in '95, and
Yeah.
I remember like I was administrative rate. I was a yeoman in the military, but
Okay.
when I went to MEPS, I didn't even know what these jobs were really. But like one of them said like SS yeoman SS, and I asked the guy, "What's this?" You know, and he said, "Oh, that's submarines, submarine service." And I had seen some submarine movies and stuff. I thought they looked pretty cool, and I said, "Yeah, I want to try this one." I wanted to go on submarines. And he said, "I don't know anybody who's done this. You know, there's not a lot of guys who do it. It's all volunteer." He said, "I don't know anyone who's done it." Because I was like, asking, "What's this like?" And he said the guys don't really talk much about it. The ones that do it, which is true because they tell us not to and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of how I ended up doing
So
it. But I didn't even know what I was doing. You know what I mean?
were you on
So
ballistics or just nuclear, like
I was
SSBNs or
on
SFN?
fast boats out of Hawaii, like
Okay.
fast attack subs. Yeah, they're all nuclear powered. But
Yeah,
and they can all carry nuclear warheads. But I would say fast attacks are more like the ones who would do like the kind of things you see in the movies, like follow other
like the
submarines
ballistics,
or
right?
spying or yeah, those kind of things. Yeah.
Okay,
As to
those
where
are
the
the
ballistic
ballistics, right?
submarines, they kind of practice shooting off missiles and hiding the ballistic subs.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different. And ballistic missile submarines, they have two crews. Like one will take it out for 3 months, then the other will take it out for 3 months, and back and forth and back. And forth. Fast attacks, if they're going out, 95% of the time you're going. Period. There's no two crews, none of that crap. So it's
Understood.
fast attack guys usually don't like guys who come from boomer subs, because they have better quality of life than we do, and they
Less
usually
leaking.
yeah, guys who cross over to the fast sub guys don't like them. Usually they'll have some disdain for the fact that they were on Trident submarines to begin with.
Understood. Isn't it
Yeah,
crazy, like how small the military is, but when you
hmm
talk to someone in the military, that you learn something new every day.
yeah, yeah. But undesignated probably would have been cool because you can kind of do some different things, see what you maybe. What did you think you liked when you ultimately
So
settled?
I really wanted to get into special warfare, but my recruiter screwed me out of that once I signed up. Um, I didn't really have any idea or any picture of what I wanted to do necessarily. When I grew up, I saw my uncles join the military. I watched a lot of movies. I watched Pearl Harbor,
Hmm.
Torpedo, uh, Men of Honor. Just like I saw a lot of movies, and I heard a lot of stories from my uncle. Well, my uncle is not just uncle, but my main uncle Charlie. He told me a lot of like stories that he was well, he was like stationed in Kuwait and during some of his operations, and he told me a lot about the brotherhood and the camaraderie that you create. And I didn't know what he meant. I just
Mm,
thought, okay, I'm going to go and serve my country, do good for my country, and do my job and come home. And, that was that. Little did I know I would create friendships, and friendships would later turn into brotherhoods. And, some of those brotherhoods, I still talk to those people today.
mhm.
And honestly, one of them is coming out and gonna be my corner man for the fight. So that's an interesting. That's gonna be interesting, and at least to say.
Yeah, that would be cool, to have like somebody worked with you or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's also a
So,
UFC prize fighter right now. Currently,
oh yeah, who would that be?
Raymond Cardenas. He
Oh,
fights under
okay.
Fury.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So, now you hadn't had any fights before you went in the military, right?
Not professional or on the professional level of any like standard. Just regular fights and bouts of boxing and wrestling matches. But
Well,
so
let's
to
talk some.
say,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, you're good.
Okay, I want to say let's give some people some Japan stuff here before we get into the fighting because I was there for 3 years. How long were you there?
I was there for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
got OTEP and force extended.
So let's talk about what did you think of Japan? What are the things that you like doing in Sasebo?
Rah rah ramen. If you get a chance, rah rah ramen in Sasebo, Japan. That was the spot. But other than that, I did, train with some of the guys in McMap, with Strats and Mock. And then I did a little bit of like other things such as rock climbing. Trained a little bit of judo with some of the guys that I got stationed with. Um, got more into the jiu-jitsu scene with the guys I was deployed with. So I was deployed with the 31st MEU and a lot of the recon Marines. And those guys started a petition at my command, so to say, to allow both Navy and Marines to do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and train in McMap. So for a time being, our captain allowed it. And I think at one point someone had their ankle snapped or something, and it got shut down. But
Mhm.
for that time being, I got trained with some of my good buddies that I still talk to today in McMap with both Marines and Navy, and that was pretty interesting to say the least.
Did you do any training outside the gate, like with any Japanese or anything?
Um, I did go a couple times, but not necessarily to the point where I would consider myself uh, trained.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and Yokosuka it's a little bit different because they have a gym not far from Yokosuka base. Rodeo style is what it's called. And there's a lot of fighters out of this gym. The Kotani brothers, who were pretty well known back then, were teaching there. Naoki Kotani and Hiroki Kotani, and they would let military guys come in there. They all spoke Japanese though, so they would kind of have to. They would show you something. Put your hand, here, or this kind of. So you kind of have to watch what they were doing if you didn't speak Japanese well. And so I trained there quite a bit, and there were actually two Japanese guys that taught wrestling on the base for free, 3 days a
Oh,
week. They
nice.
both worked. They both worked on the base, and I met one of them in the food court. This guy Joji Miyabi, and he finished third in Japanese nationals in Greco, and
Oh, wow.
he still wasn't that old at the time. I think he was in his 30s, and yeah, I saw his years and everything. I kind of approached him. He didn't speak good English, but he said, "Yeah, we train over here at the high school, and you can come. Come on." I had
Was
never
he
wrestled.
judoka?
No, he was a wrestler.
Oh, just wrestling.
Yeah, he
Okay.
was a wrestler. So, you know, yeah, he said, "You come." I had never wrestled before, and yeah, he just kicked the crap out of me. And he had another guy there, Takashi Noda, who was probably maybe in his 50s at the time or pretty close to it. He was older, and he was really good too, but different style. Miyabi was super strong, and you know, I brought some MMA guys in there to train him, and he would just demolish those guys, clobber them. So it was an interesting experience to train. So I trained with those guys, and I trained at rodeo style too.
Oh,
And
nice.
I had a friend, Ryan Bowe, who's a professional fighter. He fought in Shuto and some other shows like that. He fought in Hawaii, which is where I met him, and he spoke Japanese really well. Really, really well. And he lived in Japan. He wasn't in the military, so he helped me a lot. And I lived out in town, in a Japanese neighborhood. So
Yeah.
whenever somebody did something dumb, they all knew it was me. Like if I put out the wrong trash, because you got certain days where you can put out certain trash, they all
Yeah.
knew it. They bring it back to my house. And I'd call Ryan. I'd be like, they keep bringing my trash back, and he's like, you're putting out the wrong stuff. They know it's you. So he said, I'll come up, I'll read the sign, and I'll tell you what you can put out on what days, which he did. He came up because there was like a cage at the end of the road and it had a
Yeah, where
sign
they have
above,
the
but I couldn't
cans.
read it. I couldn't read it. So he said, Monday this, Tuesday this. And he said, you got to use a clear bag. If you bring the stuff from the base, that's not going to fly. You
I
got to
did
go.
not even know that, to be honest, because
Yeah.
I just knew to throw it in the cage by the pitchers, you know? I didn't know
Yeah.
that you actually had to take it out on certain days. So,
Yeah. He's like, you got to go to the Japanese supermarket. They have clear bags there. If you buy those bags from the base, mm-mm, they're not
no
going to,
good.
they're not going to look in there to see what you have. They want to pick it up and see. You know.
So being in the United States, do you miss the 7-Elevens?
I do miss Japan, although, if I live there now, it's really expensive. My friend Ryan
Yeah,
is still there, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I miss about getting on the train, going around to different places. I used to go Shibuya a lot, places in
oh
Tokyo a
yeah,
lot, Yokohama a lot. Um, yeah, it was exciting, because every day there's no way you could explore Japan in 3 years. No way.
absolutely not.
So every day you could get into something after work if you wanted to.
Have you ever heard of Mount Eboshi in Sasebo?
I went to Sasebo, but it was only for a few days because I was on sub at the time, and we
Ah,
we
okay.
pulled we pulled in there, and I think we were there for maybe not even a week. And at that time, that was before I knew these people, and yeah, I don't even think I went off the base actually in Sasebo.
Dang. They have a dojo up there, a judo dojo. It's pretty neat, you know. They have a hike that goes up to it. It's called the Stairway of Heaven. It's about 500
Mm,
and some steps. And you just climb, that altitude in those mountains. And it's just very scenic and beautiful out there. But once you get to the top, you make it to that dojo and you just check it out. It's definitely something worth seeing. It's like something out of a movie.
yeah, I did travel to Hiroshima too. That was kind of
Oh, nice.
interesting.
You
Because I
saw the
think
whole thing?
people who they would probably think like if you went there now, you would never know we dropped a bomb there. You know what I mean? It looks pristine. The only thing that's still there is the dome
Yeah.
from that time, but everything else it looks immaculate. You would have no idea we dropped a bomb there unless someone told you. If you're a
That's a
younger person.
Yeah, that's crazy that you mentioned that dome because I want to say not a couple months ago, I told my partner about it that Japan, the only thing they had left was where the bomb exploded right over that dome. And I went
Right.
to a snowboarding trip one time in that area in Hiroshima, and I was able to get a photo of that. And it's very sentimental and touching. And also, you don't know what you can deal with in a blink of an eye.
Hmm.
Anything can happen.
And I went in the museum there. I don't know if I got a book that has all kind of pictures, like crazy pictures from back then. And yeah, it's just pretty intense to visit a place like that. I was stationed at Pearl Harbor too. So Pearl Harbor, obviously, everybody knows about. And my grandfather was actually there when Pearl Harbor got hit, you know, and he survived. But Yeah, these historical places like that to have an opportunity. I wish I could have gone to like Iwo Jima or something, but
Oh yeah, that would have been beautiful.
yeah.
Did you ever make it a what is it? Komodo, the Komodo drag, or not the Komodos? What is it called? Kyoto?
Oh yeah.
I
Because
never made it there.
MWR, whatever they call it on the base, Moral Welfare Recreation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Koska had an awesome one. Like you could take trips everywhere. You know, some of them were kind of pricey, some of them weren't. Because they'd have hotel, transportation, all that mixed in. And I went to Kyoto twice. Kyoto's awesome. Really
I wish
awesome.
I
If you're
knew.
into and there's another place kind of closer to Yokosuka, Kamakura, Japan, which is similar to Kyoto. A lot of temples, tons of them. In one city, but it's more like a traditional city, kind of like Kyoto. And yeah, Kyoto's pretty awesome, man. If
That's
you're
pretty cool.
into like temples and stuff, yeah, it's pretty awesome. And yeah, I also Ensign Inouye. I don't know if you know who he is. He fought in Pride, and he uh, he lived in Saitama, and his brother's from Hawaii. So when I came to Japan, his brother said, "Oh, Todd's coming there. You should, hang out with him." You know, so yeah, I got to do a lot of that too. I went to Pride with him one time. You get mobbed like crazy. And
Yeah,
I used to go to like Korakuen Hall and watch. Korakuen Hall is kind of close to Tokyo Dome. It's a small place, but that's kind of like the mecca of MMA in Japan. They have shows there like Shuto Pancrase, shoot boxing. They got shows all the time there. If
yeah.
you're
I've
into
seen that
fighting,
actually.
you can go to fights like several times a week if you want. And
Yeah,
when
they
you go
promote
up,
those sumo fights a lot.
yeah, when you go up in the elevator, it's like you get up in there and it's just a small place really. But
Yeah,
the treatment of the fighters is totally different. Fans don't really approach them. If they're sitting around in the bleachers, no one really bothers them. It's the exact opposite of Pride fans, who are just rabid. These ones are real hardcore. Like they're there for the fights.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
interesting
feel like
stuff.
Japan's a different world that people don't even
Oh
understand.
yeah,
You get such a culture shock just getting off the plane, and once you like actually, get a moment to take a breath and realize where you're at, it's already too late. It's hit you, and you're
yeah,
just like, wow. It
yeah.
overwhelms you instantly.
Yeah, so anyone who's into fighting and that's watching this, Japan's something you have to do at least once if you can. They have the
Yeah,
show Ryzen there, and Ryzen's still around, so you could check that show out. And K1's still around, so there's good shows to see. So if you're a MMA fan, martial arts, Japan's something you have to do at least once.
yeah,
Or you haven't
absolutely.
you haven't lived yet. But
For,
let's kind of
for
get
a
into
fact,
okay,
right
so
there.
you're in the military. You get out. When does this kind of fighting idea come into the picture?
I actually would fight all the time in the military, and it was, thanks to my chain of command, they kept it, swept under the rug.
Uh,
Um, I was kind of their go-to guy, so they didn't want to send me up to mass and NJP me and all that. But I got really into fighting in the military. I'm a pretty short and stout guy, and people thought they could test me and push me, and I didn't let that happen. Um, One fight led to another fight, and 23 fights later, and I just was loving it. And with my experience already in boxing and wrestling and Greco-Roman, folk style, and freestyle, it was bound to push me more, and that's exactly what it did. It just pushed me more into the sport, and I just continue to love it, continue to watch it. Me and my group of friends would go out. If you've been to Sasebo, the only thing on base is Galaxies and Chili's. So we would
yeah,
go out to Chili's and watch the fights, and it was either Chili's or Brody's, and we would just watch the fights and download them, and then go back to the berthing, and watch them while we're deployed. And obviously, when you get deployed, tension builds up. people get in scuffles, and one thing leads to another. So I think that just pushed me more into the sport. And around 2016, um, when I started transitioning out, I was pursuing more of a professional career in engineering.
Mm,
So I enrolled myself in college while still in service. And after service, I continued down that course, um, working in the mason industry and the carpentry industry. So I really took some time away, but in that time, I was able to regain my strength, and as well as my health. When I got out, I got really depressed. People don't tell you when you get out how difficult it is to
mm,
actually transition.
mm.
So I went from about 190 pounds to 380 pounds. And from 2016 to 2020 to 2020, around that time frame, I started to regain myself and regain my health. And part of that was through work, lifting stone, digging trenches, working with my family, and helping my family necessarily build. And through that, I was able to reestablish my core as well as my chiropractic issues that I had, as well as my strength and my grip. And around, I want to say 2022 is when I started competing again, but I started competing in jiu-jitsu, and I started, really focusing on jiu-jitsu, the technique of jiu-jitsu, the submissions, and I did my first competition for Tap Cancer out in Oaklawn Pavilion, and like I said, I just fell more in love with it. So I just continued training. My little brother and I, we always talked about owning our own gym, and we worked our butt off, got our own equipment, and started pursuing that dream. He has a son, and I have a couple sons of my own. So we wanted to train them just like our dad trained us, and push them into kind of kind of gear them towards the path that we were kind of geared towards. And I just think that it's one of the best things in life. It creates, like I said at the beginning, it creates that routine and that discipline that people don't understand, as well as that patience. So I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, for people, when you mention birthing, that's where people live on ships, like, that's where they sleep and whatnot. That's what they call it in the Navy. So, if you guys are curious that don't know, that's what he was referring to. What kind of
Yeah.
ship were you on?
So I was on two LHDs. I was on the USS Essex
Mm.
and the Baham Richard. And don't get that mixed up with the San Diego side of it. I was in the Sasebo side of it. So um, if you're not aware of this, most people don't understand that the San Diego fleet and the Japan fleet did a hull swap in 2013. So they mix it up and think people that were stationed in Japan were actually stationed in San Diego. So I just want to, correct that before anything. So I was on both the Essex and the Bahama Shard during the hull swap and in Sasebo.
I don't know anything about ships. I was on submarines, so we kind of stay away from ships. But are those big? What kind of ship? LH.
It's a LHD, so it's just smaller than an aircraft carrier, and it
Oh,
has the capabilities of taking on helos and jets,
oh,
as well as amphibious assault crafts, such as LCACs, which are known as landing craft air cushions, or most people think they're hovercrafts,
mhm,
and some of the crafts that actually stormed the beach of Normandy, landing craft units,
pretty
and
cool.
other crafts as well, like armored vehicles and so forth. So.
Now, when did it? Like, what year do you think when it came where fighting was becoming a reality?
That's a tough question, to be honest. I've never thought I'd get to the point that I am currently. So, it's still hitting me. It's still honestly hitting me that this could be a reality for me.
Hmm. But when did you do you know what year where you kind of thought, yeah, maybe I want to do some MMA competitions?
Around 2022, I would say.
Yeah. And it was just because of how long you'd been training, or
For
why
the
did you
most
decide?
part, it was due to my training, but my dad was a very big fan and supporter of the UFC growing up. We kind of grew up really like poor, so my dad would purchase the VHS of UFC pretty much of every single one, and we would just sit there and watch every single one instead of paying for like Comcast or DirecTV. We would just get the UFC fights, and we would just sit there and watch it. And that's kind of when I started dreaming about being a fighter and getting into the sport really.
Now, who were you first training with when you got out?
Um, what do you mean necessarily?
Like, did you go to a gym? Like, did you find a gym to train at, like
No,
most
I
people?
no, I actually just started training with my little brother.
Uh,
We
and
already been training so much in life together that I felt he was the strongest competitor I could ever compete against. He had brick fists. You would get hit by him, and you felt like you were getting hit by a train.
mhm. So you
So
kind of
that was
stuck with him all this time, or?
yeah. I stuck with him all this time, and then unfortunately last year he passed away due to a tragic car accident. So um, I would I wouldn't say that I wanted to pursue this career in martial arts. I try to urge him into this just because he absolutely loved martial arts and the UFC. He didn't really like certain aspects of it. He liked the punching and the ground and pound and the submissions and the slamming and so forth, but he wasn't focused on the technique of it. So around 2020, 2022, I started to get him more involved in the techniques and training with him, working out with him, and necessarily getting back into shape with him.
Now, losing him, like, where did you go? How did you? Because he was your main training partner. How did you compensate for that?
Um, Realistically, I haven't. He was such a big part of my life that I haven't regained that. I haven't necessarily regained that. So I've been just training by myself with my god brother. I took all my equipment that I had and put it in his garage, and I've been training with him. I reached out to a couple of my buddies that not only did I serve with, but live local to Illinois, and some of my buddies that I went to school with. And I reached out to train with them. But in regards to, you know, replacing that training partner, that's something that's not replaceable.
Mhm. You never wanted to like get with a team of people.
No,
Mhm.
I like being independent. I feel like that's the best approach. And sometimes things come best when you put your determination to it.
There are some places like that in Hawaii. Like I think the guys who were, like Max Holloway's from Waianae, for example. But a lot of people don't know that he kind of started out with some guys that were in a garage. They didn't have the money to go to the best jujitsu gyms on Oahu. They started their own thing out there in Waianae. Um,
Yeah.
it's called Team Ruthless was what it was called, and Max was one of those guys. Colin McKenzie was another. John Bernard. These are guys who've been on my show and stuff. But there's a lot of people like that out in Hawaii because there's a lot of people that are poor, and fighting is kind of a cultural thing, so they just start their own. And those guys had a lot of success, you know. They had a lot. Obviously, Max had a lot of success, and
Yeah.
he's training with a regular kind of advanced team now. But he had a lot of fights with those guys, so it wasn't like he had started getting good now. He was good back then too, and so it can be done. It can be difficult, but it can be done. I've seen that happen in Hawaii. A lot of teams are like that actually. Oahu, it's pretty common, that maybe one, two, three guys will, make their own thing, and it becomes maybe 12, 15, 20, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I've been hoping for something like that, and to be honest, I've talked to my cornerman that's going to be flying out from Dallas about this. We've actually talked about hopefully starting a traveling team and make a thing of it because there's a lot of good fighters out there that get unrecognized and don't honestly get the opportunity.
One thing about cornering, though, do you feel like the guy who's going to fly out, he's not with you every day? He doesn't really, he probably knows you, but doesn't really know you like the back of his hand. Do you feel like
Yeah, I
that might
understand
be
that
a
much.
little bit of a challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a bit of a challenge. The good thing is, I've choked him out a couple times and know he knows better and he kind of understands like my style. He's seen me handle myself while in the birthing and outside the birthing. So he's had some fair visuals of me fighting and understands my capabilities. So it'll be interesting to see when we're actually working together instead of actually choking each other out.
Now, tell me how this Chicago cage fighting thing came about. Like, how did you get approached to do this? How did this come into
I
your
actually saw it and reached out, and I've been trying to, get in the scene for some time. I was offered a chance at a bout in Texas, and unfortunately, the finances didn't line up, so I didn't get to make that opportunity. And I reached out and I let them know who I was, and I was adamant about it, and I'm still pretty adamant about it, and I'm scrapping everything up that I can and just pushing myself day in and day out from waking up early to conditioning to calisthenics to my cardio and weightlifting and eating and being the best I can be right now.
So, who's the promoter for that show? You just reached out to them on like Instagram or what?
So I just I emailed them and I believe they just had an ad up and I just did some research and I just kept researching and researching and finally I came across a thing that told them to email them and I didn't even know if I was able to even compete or if they had any bouts available or anything like that. And I just emailed them. I let them know who I was, what styles I've trained in, and let them know I'm ready to go.
Hmm.
And they asked me, does it matter if your opponent's 2-0? And I said, you know what? It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You could be 6'5" and 5'5", and the 5'5" guy beats you, and the guy could be 120 pounds, and that guy could be 250 pounds. You just don't know those opportunities or those possibilities. So I just said, you know what? I'm ready. There's no other opportunity in life other than this one. I reached out, and at the end of the day, it's up to me to go out there and compete.
Well, there's several shows in the Chicago area, so there might be, some different. I've seen some other promotions in that area, people I follow and whatnot. Um, yeah, so there's other opportunities. I'm sure that if you continue competing, there'll be others promotions too. What did you know anything about Chicago cage fighting? You ever been to one of their shows, or have they
Absolutely
had a
not.
show
I did
before?
not know. I did not even know. The only show that I knew that did cage fighting, I want to say was back in like 2010, 2011, and it was in, I want to say around Gurnee area, and they had a cage fight at the college campus. I didn't even know Illinois had a cage fighting scene or a mixed martial arts scene other than BJJ or boxing. Your basic martial arts like karate or taekwondo.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
I'll have to ref- put you on to some of that. Because there's a few shows that are pretty active in that area. So now, tell me what you're thinking about. Because this is your first MMA fight, or did you have an amateur fight, or
No, this would be my first one.
okay? So kind of tell me um, what you're thinking. Go. When is the event first? Because I know Millions. I think it's going to be on here or something.
Yeah, I believe
When
so.
is the event?
The event's going to be Saturday, March 1st.
Hmm. And where's it going to be held at?
It's going to be held in Cicero, Illinois at the Cicero Stadium,
Hmm.
and the doors open at 5:30, I believe.
Hmm. And how many fights do you know if there's going to have a lot of fights on the card, or
From what I'm aware, they have a pretty good lineup so far. I've seen about 10 bouts, but I don't know any of the fighters personally. I just have seen their names, I've seen their images, and I'm ready to see the live action.
yeah, that's pretty. So tell me what you're thinking about going into your first fight and all that.
A bit nervous, a bit anxious, and just ready. Just ready.
Do you know who you're fighting against?
Yeah, I do. I found out who I'm fighting against. I'll be fighting Terry Martin Jr. Um, as you
Oh
know,
wow, his dad,
yep,
his
the son
son.
of
Oh
Terry
wow, wow.
Martin.
Terry Martin was really good. I liked him.
Oh
He's a
yeah,
big hitter.
he
Wow.
went blow for blow.
So you're gonna fight his son. How awesome.
Yeah. I've seen some of his fight. He seems like his dad, where he goes blow for blow and gets in the center cage. So I'm ready for that. But I'm also ready for anything else he tries. I heard he's a decent wrestler, so we'll see.
What's crazy? Like I was training with Chris Lieben in 2008. He came to Hawaii and he was coaching at a gym that TJ Thompson, a promoter, Super Brawl opened called Icon. It only lasted like a year, but they had brought him out there to be a coach, and he fought Terry Martin during that time that he was there.
I
And
remember
man,
Icon.
yeah, it was a wild fight. I kind of thought I didn't think Chris was going to win the fight, to be honest, because Terry Martin's a big hitter and Chris is kind of hittable, but and he did get hit some in that fight, but yeah, he just kind of man it. Chris, he hits so hard, like even when he's hitting lightly, you can feel it like go right through the pad. Like his hand is just like a bowling ball.
Yeah,
It's real heavy. So when he's just like, yeah, I want to show you all some technique, like, it's like, like I've held pads for him when he's doing that. You guys want to
yeah,
do it like this, and it's like, damn, like when he's just tapping the pad, it's heavy. I think bare knuckle he was born to do that. It's a shame that it came on so late in his life because I think had that been around when he was young, he would have
yeah.
been because I think this hold and hit is something that Chris is as good as anybody. That's how he stopped Vanderlei, and that's what he did.
Vanderlei's a good fighter too.
In his 3 bare knuckle fights, he went right to because in boxing this is illegal. You know
Yeah,
that, right?
clinching.
Yeah, to hold behind the head because
Yeah,
it's so effective that everyone would try to do this if it was legal in boxing. It would be who would get to this quickest. But in bare knuckle, it's legal. And
yeah.
Chris, in all 3 of Chris's fights, he was, you know,
Oh
he'd
yeah,
just grab it right away and boom, boom. He fought Phil Baroni. He fought this one guy was pretty popular in bare knuckle. I think he had 3 fights, and I think they were all knockouts pretty quickly. And I was like, man, this is what you're born to do. Is this one? It's a shame that. But now he's refereeing. He did the Islam fight with Islam's last fight. He was judging that. So that was his first UFC main event, I think. So he's kind of come a long way. But yeah, it's all this wild stuff. So let's get back to kind of your thing. Let's kind of talk about your training a little bit because I know you kind of touched on it a little. But when you were getting ready for MMA with your brother and your god brother, kind of what training were you doing like in your garage or facility?
So, first things first, I wake up, do my calisthenics, stretching, my yoga, do a little bit of plated workouts at home. It's all free weights, so I don't have a bar here or anything like that. I got a couple like 8 pound punching weights that you can hook your fist in and do shadow boxing. So I do some shadow boxing at home, and along with the yoga and calisthenics, and then I'll drive to my godfather's or my godfather's house, and with my godbrother, I'll do abs, cardio, heavy lifting, and then we'll talk about my techniques in boxing and um, wrestling and so forth, and sparring. And I'll train with him. Um, but a lot of it is mainly the cardio aspect, getting back in shape and getting my stamina back up. So I focus primarily on that, and then from there I'll do some weight cutting and weightlifting, and I'll get my core in.
Hmm. Now you're not when you're training garage, you don't have a cage, right? So how are you kind
No,
of
no, I don't have a cage.
supplementing, that aspect of it of fighting against the cage? Are you doing it against a wall or?
No, I haven't done that, but my guy that's coming out here, he's actually recommended wall walking, which I've never heard of that before. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna see what that's about. Maybe that might be something that you're discussing. So I'm gonna have to work into that and see how that's gonna go about. I've been in the ring, so I know how to move my corners and so forth. But this is an octagon, so it's a different beast.
Right, gyms that don't have a cage. I've been in some, and a lot of that we would use against the wall to kind of try to simulate some of that. Now, wall doesn't have the give that a cage does, but kind of doing some of the similar things when someone has you pinned against the wall and how to defend yourself if they're trying to take you down, different things you can do off the wall, takedown wise. And yeah, just trying to use that because you don't have a cage, to do some of the simulation against the fence because a lot of fights end up there, you know. Yeah, and even on the ground, being kind of squashed up against the wall, similar to the
Yeah,
cage. So yeah, it's something that you can. Some guys have to supplement, like you're saying,
yeah.
if you don't have one, you could utilize it in different ways.
Absolutely. I do feel like I am getting close quarters though, just because of those birthing fights. Like it's about 3 to 6 feet total, so you don't have much space. And when you're deployed for 9 to 11 months, that testosterone builds up, and whoever's the biggest and toughest is the alpha in that aisle.
The
So,
submarine birthings don't have that kind of space, man. They're
oh,
tiny.
I don't know anything about a submarine.
Yeah, yeah. They have them. They're kind of scattered throughout the sub, in the forward part,
Yeah,
and they're not big. Some are bigger than others, but even the biggest one is not big. So
yeah.
yeah,
But you understand the close quarters of
yeah,
birthing, though, correct?
yeah. You got about this much space, in between.
Yeah,
The
that and your rack too.
yeah, it's kind of like a coffin, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, very different. But that's cool that you can. So you're doing most of your training in the garage kind of stuff.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And you're doing a lot of sparring and stuff too, or no?
Boxing and like my forms, working on a lot of my forms. Um, I'm actually trying to find a sparring partner that can keep up with me. So that's kind of hard. I have a buddy that has children, so it's a little hard to get him to travel up from Chicago towards where my family is. And he used to box with my brother, so I feel like he well not just box, but he would pretty much just like mess around with my brother boxing, wrestling, and so forth. And I felt like he would be a good training partner in regards to sparring, other than with my cousin.
Now, from wrestling, you can kind of lose the timing if you're not doing it
Yeah,
all the time. Uh, how do you feel from your vantage point? Have you been able to maintain a lot of that, or?
I feel like I've been able to maintain about 80 to 90% of it. But wrestling's not my main focus that I'm focused on here for this fight. Like I said, I've watched some of his fight, and he's more of a stand up guy, a little unorthodox, but he's pretty stand up. Um, I am prepared for it to go to the ground, to say the least, and I don't want to touch on that just because that's kind
Right,
of
right.
in my back burner, and I want to keep that to myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just kind of talking to you, you're kind of doing your own thing. Some people may not understand that, but coming from Hawaii, I saw it a lot. And I saw a lot of guys who are really successful. So it's not something that's unheard of. Although I think the average person might think, well, whoa, how can you do it by yourself? Or with just a handful of people. But it can be done. You know, I've seen it. So that's very interesting. So as we're kind of getting to the hour here, I kind of want to give you a chance to kind of you know tell people more about again your fight, plug your fight again, where they can find you, and maybe anything like a message you want to leave.
Come out and check out the fight March 1st, Saturday, in Cicero Stadium in Cicero, Illinois. You can pretty much find this fight on Instagram, Facebook. You can search up Chicago Cage Fight Championship, and you'll be sure to find that there. You can also find it through Todd Atkins and a couple other sources. If you go find me on Facebook at MB Unknown, or you can even look up my competitor Terry Martin and find him as well, and see that we're both ready to fight on March 1st.
What time does the show start? Because I think it's going to be on this platform.
I believe the first fight starts around for like 5:30, and the main event starts around 9:30, 10:30, if I'm
And
not
this is all
mistaken.
central time for people that are watching this central time.
Correct,
um,
sir. Central Time.
yeah. And maybe if there's a message you want to leave off on, I always give some people the opportunity to. Um, it could be anything, something we didn't touch on, or something you feel is important, or it could be anything really.
You know what? Um, the best advice I've ever been given in life is the wealthiest man is not built with money, but built with the knowledge of those before him and the knowledge that's been bestowed upon them. And sometimes that is more valuable than money will ever be.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I kind of am similar in that I'm pretty generous. When it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't hoard money. I'm more generous with it. My father was like that too. So yeah, I can relate to that one. It's good
I honestly don't even
philosophy.
like touching money.
Can't say I don't blame you. It can cause problems for sure.
Yeah,
Well,
I've definitely been in my fair share of problems with finances, so I try to just stay away from it at this point.
yeah. Well, Michael, it was awesome talking to you. Everybody, check out Michael. He's on Instagram too, MB Unknown, right?
Yes,
M-
sir.
Is there any underscore in there? Or is it just MB Unknown?
So it's going to be M period B period UN period N or KNOWN.
Yeah. Yeah, so check him out. Check out the show, Chicago Cage Fighting, Saturday on Millions. And yeah, man, it was awesome talking to you. And
You too.
best of luck against Terry Martin Jr., man.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. I can't wait.
All right, man. Well, it was awesome talking to you. Everyone checking this out. I made myself available about 3 nights a week on Millions, so maybe I'll do some more stuff. And I have a YouTube channel, Todd Atkins Show. I've done tons of tons of stuff on there. So if you want to check it out, you can see it. So Michael, awesome talking to you,
You as
everybody.
well, Todd.
Until the next time, take care.
Hi guys, I'm Kiala. I am an entrepreneur on the island of Oahu in Hawaii, where I do lash extensions for women. I love making them feel beautiful and just giving them that time to come in and relax for a few hours. Besides doing lash extensions, I partnered up with an amazing woman. Some other things that we help them with as well is content creation for social media pages, videography services, and also photography shoots. We also do a lot of things remotely and virtually for them too. And we just want to make it easier for them. We really love connecting with other businesses and helping them grow on social media platforms. Social media is a powerful tool, and we aim to make it accessible for those who lack time or expertise. Get ready for an exciting conversation on the Todd Atkins Show. It was nice to meet everybody.